Welcome to this week's edition. My name is Maya Berry. I'm the Executive Director of the Arab American Institute. For reasons that I trust you're completely aware, we are doing our best to make sure that Lebanon and the conversation about what is happening in Lebanon and the human toll that is taking place on the people of Lebanon remains a part of the conversation for Western media, particularly here in the United States. Regrettably, that is not the case. That's often the situation, but it's particularly the case while this administration moves us from one fire to another, and the understanding or the lack of understanding that the United States is complicit in the actions of Israel in Lebanon is also something of real importance to us. So I am honored to be joined today by four individuals who have a great deal to share with us about what is happening in Lebanon with a focus on the southern villages. We launched our program with a panel discussion. Last week, we featured two different villages, hearing from Arab Americans directly impacted by what's happening there. Today, we'll continue that discussion with a conversation about both Bint Jbeil and Nabatieh. So I'm going to ask each of our folks to just share, frankly, their connection to the village, what the village is like in normal times. That's something that is not often discussed, but people need to understand why we have such a strong connection. And just a quick summary of the current conditions that you're experiencing. And let me start with actually Nasser Beydoun, who is a dear old friend in Michigan, but who is very, very strongly with his connection to Bint Jbeil. Let's start with you, Nasser.
Hi, Maya, how are you? Thank you for having this discussion. First of all, my parents are both from Bint Jbeil. My grandfather was the parliament representative of Bint Jbeil. Our history goes back into Bint Jbeil for hundreds of years. Uncle is one of the leading scholars. My uncle was one of the leading poets from Bint Jbeil. So our history is deeply rooted in the city. Prior to Israel's annihilation of the city, Israel was a beautiful, vibrant, clean, safe community where, in the winter months, the population kind of, but in the summertime, a lot of expatriates, and many of them from Michigan, because Dearborn and the US has a large community of Arab Americans whose ancestors or who come to Bint Jbeil, who have built houses in Bint Jbeil and then go spend the summers there.
Thank you, Nasser. Before I jump to Rindala, we're going to go to you next. Tell me the current conditions now.
It's a disaster. I mean, Israel has destroyed most of the village. Bint Jbeil, there's a vendetta in the IDF against the city of Bint Jbeil because one, it was where Nasrallah made his famous 2000 speech in the playground of Bint Jbeil, and second, it's the city that basically Hezbollah calls it the camp of liberation, where some of the fiercest battles fought in 2006 and again currently. But basically, they've destroyed the city. They've basically wiped out all the homes, or schools, all the hospitals. Basically left nothing there. The savagery of Zionism and Israel can't compare to anything in modern times.
Thank you, Nasser. We've got a fact sheet on Bint Jbeil specifically that'll share some of the take that Nasser is sharing with us. Rindala, let me go to you. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to be with us today. But same questions to you, just your connection, your memories, and sort of the current state of affairs.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am from Bint Jbeil. While I lived in the US for about 13 years, I moved back to Lebanon many years ago, and a lot of my family lives in Bint Jbeil. And again, I'm like Nasser. We are a family that has been in Bint Jbeil for hundreds and hundreds of years. I'm also a Beydoun, and it's home. It's really home. And I will add to what Nasser said. Maybe summarize it by saying, literally, Bint Jbeil no more. There is no more Bint Jbeil, and there's no one to tell the stories. The way we know that there is no more town, but people know that their houses are demolished by buying satellite images. There's no one even there. There are no witnesses. So you kind of get these satellite images, imagine, and you start looking for your house, and then you find it, and then it's gone. And that's exactly what happened with my aunt's house last week. We started looking, we're looking for it, and it and the whole neighborhood just like nothing. It's not like a missile or a bomb. I don't know how they do that. They just demolish the whole structure. The whole neighborhood, there's nothing left. Um, so that's Bint Jbeil today.
Thank you, Rindala. I think part of our conversation, a common thread, will be the operations and the unfolding genocide that took place in Gaza, happening with complete impunity and no accountability, will find its way to our discussions throughout this. When the way you describe it, Rindala, is the same footage that we saw from Gaza. It's aerial footage of complete flat areas. Um, Thank you both, and I'm sorry for your loss, obviously. Let us move to Nabatieh, specifically to learn more about that village. I want to start with Jad, who is a wonderful colleague from Lebanon who happens to be in the United States right now. Jad, why don't you share with us those same connections to Nabatieh and a bit of background about the village?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm from Nabatieh. I was born and raised there, and my family, along with a million other people, has been displaced since the 2nd of March. And they've been living in limbo since, which ironically has intensified since the ceasefire was announced by President Trump on the 16th of April. And I really want to emphasize this word limbo because my family, along with many others, are not formally permanently settled somewhere else. So they're not formally refugees. They're just suspended, not knowing when they're going to go back, not knowing if they're going to go back, not knowing if they're going to find anything when they're going to go back. And these lived realities, you mentioned that Maya in the beginning, get buried under headlines that focus on security. And then this humanity gets dehumanized and headlines focusing on Hezbollah or depicting the South as a military stronghold for Hezbollah, which is really adopting Israeli rhetoric. In reality, the South, and Nabatieh in particular, is a real city. It is a city where generations have lived for many, many, many centuries. It is a city of differences, of religious pluralism. It has been the beating economic heart of the South for many years. But of 2024, the municipal building was reduced to rubble, killing at the time the head of the municipality along with 15 other people. But then the ceasefire, unfortunately, the first one didn't end the violence. What it did is it forced people to coexist with Israeli military operations in Nabatieh. Nabatieh was housing a significant portion of the 80,000 displaced people who were already displaced even before March 2nd. And people were trying to normalize violence. They replaced the destroyed souk with a makeshift modern one with kiosks. It was imperfect, it was improvised, but it was open. But even that normalization of instability didn't last because war escalated on the 2nd of March. And actually, one of the worst atrocities of the war occurred in Nabatieh when an Israeli airstrike killed 13 members of the Lebanese state security, whose only allegiance is to the Lebanese state. And then a ceasefire was announced on the 16th of April, and my family, like Qassem's family, went to Nabatieh to check on the house, to stay there because they missed it. And I remember calling my dad, asking him about his initial thoughts, expecting to hear something positive, something sentimental. But instead, he told me the city is dead. And since then, things have gotten worse during the ceasefire period. Nabatieh district has been one of the hardest hit districts in the south, especially the villages of Zawt al-Gharbiyeh, Zawt al-Sharqiyeh, Yuhmar, and Ernoun. And it is being systematically hollowed out. Most of the 119 evacuation orders that occurred after the ceasefire was announced happened in the villages of the Nabatieh district. And right now, because of the systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure, most people, even though they want to go back after the war is over, will not be able to return, even if they wanted to. And I think that deserves attention. And throughout this whole thing, I've found it ironic, to be honest, that I'm in DC working on Lebanese policy, arguing that the South has lived civilian space, while its people are telling me that the South is dead. And that seriously deserves more attention from us.
Thank you, Jad. Folks, just a reminder, we're talking about both Bint Jbeil and Nabatieh. We've got fact sheets on both villages. Appreciate the questions wanting to learn more. There's a lot that we could be saying. These are brief fact sheets just to give you a sense of where to get started. But both, actually, all of our speakers thus far have mentioned things that are contained within them. Jad, you mentioned those that are displaced. So, Kassem, I'd like to go to you, ask you to do the same. Thank you for joining us during this difficult time. But if you could update us on what's happening there locally.
Sure, for sure. Thank you for having me. I mean, thank you for this discussion. Uh, Jad put it perfectly. I just want to add to what he said. I want to share more of my connection to Nabatieh and some of the lived experiences and shared stories about it. Nabatieh is the city in the heart of southern Lebanon. It really means so much to me. I was born and raised in Nabatieh. I grew up in this beautiful city. I've memorized its roads, its traffic, its alleys, and I've witnessed firsthand the stories of people who lived there. My school was in Nabatieh, actually. So were all my friends. And for my past 24 years, I've traveled to different countries. I went to the US when I was 21 and I lived there for 4 months. I also visited Turkey, Egypt, Switzerland, France. And don't get me wrong, these are all beautiful countries with great people and amazing cultures, but it's nothing like Nabatieh. I there lived an elderly man who was over 90 years old, and whenever I would pass from his place, he would always, say hi to me. He would always tell me a joke that would, it's an innocent joke that would make my whole day. Uh, it really meant a lot to me. And this old man, the whole people of Nabatieh all knew him, even though it's a very a large and crowded city. But it's just another trait of Nabatieh that it felt like home, and it felt like everyone knew each other. And unfortunately, in a tragic event, Israel targeted this innocent man who refused to leave his home, and they killed him on the last day of the first round of the war in 2024. So yeah, it was very tragic news to us, especially as it was just before the ceasefire was announced. Today, Nabatieh witnesses a wide and aggressive destruction of many of its major components. A lot of the neighborhoods have been destroyed and demolished, and a lot of the local stores that the people built over the years. So Israel has been focusing the majority of its strikes on the heart of Nabatieh and Nabatieh Governorate. In fact, since the ceasefire of April 16th, just recently, Israel has targeted southern Lebanon and recently Nabatieh in over 20 strikes daily. But despite that, some people refuse to leave their homes. Just yesterday, I saw this report that says over 200 people are staying all together. They're putting in the efforts just not to leave their home. And I mean, for the past 15 months, we were living in Nabatieh, but it was, this was during the last ceasefire. It was under attack, and it didn't really feel like a ceasefire. Today, this feels even worse. Yeah, it feels even worse than last time, and it feels like we're never going to go back to our towns and to our cities. But we hope that this isn't true, and that we eventually do go back, and there will be some peace.
Kassem, where are you now?
So now I am staying in a place near Beirut. It's called Aramoun. Uh, I see a lot of people staying here as well. Some of them are from Nabatieh, and it's a you kind of feel it's a shared pain in between all of these people. Uh, just as I said, when we were in Nabatieh, everyone felt like home. Everyone felt like family. And still here, when I see those people, I feel like I see some part of Nabatieh. So yeah.
Nasser, I was going to go to you next. Whatever you want to offer, I want to hear. But I also, if you could speak, Nasser, to a bit of the politics of this. You are in Michigan. How are you talking to policymakers in your home state about what is happening in Lebanon and the need for them to engage on this issue?
Focus right now on local and trying to defeat these AIPAC-backed candidates. Uh, we will never be able to end the occupation, destruction caused by Israel until we end Israel's domination of American politics. And I think a lot of the country waking up to see what Israel is all about. And what I want to say, and something that Kassem, we're not going to give them the satisfaction of saying the South is no longer, or it's not. Every single village, every single house will be rebuilt, as it's rebuilt every time Israel has destroyed it. The problem is the Israelis have no attachment to the land. They have no culture or history in that region. So it's very easy for them to destroy 400-year-old mosques or destroy our villages because they are basically, they have no history there. They have no culture tying them to that region. The only thing is a colonial project. They wish to come and occupy, move the people who live there.
Rindala, I want to come back to you on the point about Bint Jbeil and its connection to the United States. You mentioned that you left, but then you came back. The settlements here in the US are very much tied to wars breaking out there and the conflicts that play out there. Can you share a bit about the sort of connections of those local villages? And correctly, Nabatieh is a large city. I still like to call it a village, but yes, understanding the connections of the diaspora and the role that they've played in elevating the discussions about these areas so that they're not ignored.
I mean, if I can just share my family's experience of why we went to the US back in 76. We're talking about 50 years ago, is when our first house was totally demolished by the Israelis. My father was, at the beginning of his life, I was 6 years old at the time. He had saved every penny he could save and built this little house. And then there was kind of a mini invasion where they, came in. Since then, it's always been their habit, again, I don't know how they do that. They take a whole structure down. After that, my family went down to Sur, another village on the coast in Lebanon, Tyre, or Tyre in English. And we lived in a building in 78, 2 years later. We were, I think, on the 7th floor. The invasion of 78, the whole building down, just the whole building. And then we went and lived for a few years in Saida, and then we left and went to the US. And a lot of people did as well. I mean, you leave. My father had founded the technical school of Bint Jbeil. He was the first headmaster, etc. So for many years, he continued to have that position, but without school and without students and without really being able to do the job. So finally, we left, went to America, immigrated like thousands of families did. and it's not easy. Even when you have relatives, even when you have cousins, you get completely uprooted, right? And you kind of go and you have to start from below zero. And usually, as an immigrant, you start without money, etc., etc. Last week, basically in the same night, we got the news that that school that I mentioned, the technical school that my father had founded, again, and we had lived, there was a house inside it for us. We had lived in it, and to the ground. That was last week. It's a huge school with a huge campus. It's a landmark that's known in that whole area. And we had my grandparents' house that is 200 years old in 2006. 200 years old with a lot of history, house to the ground. So, I mean, to Nasser's point, of course, people will go back and rebuild, but I really, we need to make it clear that you don't really rebuild things the way they were. There's a big loss that's really happening here.
Before we go to Nasser,
Yeah.
Rindala, I really want to take a moment and I really appreciate the way you've laid out the timeline, though it is one of personal loss because you're telling us based on your individual homes at the time. We are to understand the first large-scale invasion, Israel's first large-scale invasion of Lebanon took place in 1978 with what they then honestly called Operation Litani, right? Very little has changed. But you started us in 1976. You started us with
Yes.
your first home loss in 1976, and you've given us that progression. And I think that's one of the context that's constantly missing from Americans' understanding of this crisis, this history, this continuous suffering that takes place with Israeli domination, regional domination that plays out. So really, I wanted just to acknowledge that that tells a story in a way that's exceptionally important. And thank you.
Actually, if we really want to tell the whole story, we go back to 48. Bint Jbeil was a major center in the south because it's very close to Palestine. So it had a very, very vibrant life, vibrant bazaar. I mean, when my father tells me stories, people kind of would go back and forth and trade between Palestine and Bint Jbeil.
Yes.
And of course, and then 48 happened, and that is when the story starts, the story of the destruction. So it's not just in 76. We
Yes.
really go back 80 years
Yeah.
or 78 years
Absolutely.
to go.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rindala. Thank you so much for that. Nasser, if I can have you quickly share with us what Rindala mentioned in terms of the lawsuit you're putting forward.
What we did, I am the chairman of the Arab American Civil Rights League, and we basically are in the process of filing a class action lawsuit against the United States government under the Leahy Act because they are basically responsible for most of the destruction. And we're going to go after the US government as well as all the American companies who are supplying the weapons to Israel, knowing full well that the Israelis are committing crimes against humanity in South Lebanon. And I want to add something else to Rindala's personal experience. The Israelis destroyed my parents' house 2 days after their so-called ceasefire. They destroyed my grandfather's house, who was a member of parliament, in 1975. And he represented Bint Jbeil, but from 75 till the time he died in 1984, he wasn't allowed to go back because of Israel's occupation of the South up until 2000. So, this Israel has tried over and over and destroyed over and over to occupy and steal the land in South Lebanon. But they don't know that the people of South Lebanon will never surrender their land to the Israelis.
It's something that both Palestinians and Lebanese completely understand is when there's an announcement of a ceasefire, you will see a massive surge in the attack. And then the ceasefire itself just means the continued killing. It's a reality, unfortunately, that folks are well aware of. Jed, I want to go to you. We have a question from one of the attendees. What is the biggest misconception in the United States about Israel's attacks on Lebanon? You've been here for several months. You've been having these conversations with Americans. Share with us your take on that.
Yeah, well, simply put, it is that every Israeli airstrike is targeting Hezbollah target, when in reality, that is not truthful at all. Looking at what is being destroyed, does an entirely different story. Looking at the type of targets, does entirely different stories. I mean, some of this has been already mentioned, but what is being destroyed is schools and hospitals and power plants and water stations. We even saw the destruction of solar panels a couple of weeks ago, and religious buildings. A Catholic monastery was destroyed 4 or 5 days ago in the south as well. So this is certainly the biggest misconception. Another one which I've been trying to dispute as much as I can is that, frankly, South Lebanon is looked at as this region that is independent from the rest of the country, where its people are kind of like aliens, foreigners to the land, when it is just an extension of the rest of the country. Everything that happens in the country affects them. Every policy taken at the national level obviously affects the South as well. And I think this has been the biggest thing, this intentional and non-intentional dehumanization of the impacts, the civilian impacts of the war.
I really, really appreciate that, Jed. So true. Speaking of Americans, and Kassem, I'm going to go to you next to flip the question. But speaking of Americans, we put a poll into the field asking the following question. Do you believe the United States should take more steps to pressure Israel to stop bombing and leave southern Lebanon? And just want to share that. There we go. So a majority of Americans want the U.S. to pressure Israel to end its occupation and to abide by, at a minimum, these U.S. negotiated ceasefires in order to stop the suffering there. Kassem, I want to go to you with the flip of that question, which is, what do Lebanese think about what the United States is doing or not doing with regards to Lebanon right now?
I mean, thank you for the question. It's a very a nice one. It's a very debatable one. I see mixed opinions just from the area around me and within the family, quite frankly. Some of them would say we should push forward with the negotiations with the United States. This is the way that peace would happen. Some of them would say that this is Lebanese kind of negotiations and talks that should be happening in between Hezbollah and the Lebanese government. Uh, and to me personally, I think that it doesn't hurt to try and push with the negotiations with the United States. I mean, they have control over Israel in a big and major position. So if we wanna think positively, we would say, and personally, I would say that maybe pushing through the talks with the United States, it could lead somewhere. And some people would say that we've seen some positive impact so far, that at least a big part of Lebanon is not being hit, but it's not perfect. We still see southern Lebanon being considered as a militia operated area, when it's not the case in a major part of it. I mean, just to add to what Jad said, we know the people of Nabatieh and we know their places, their homes, and what's being destructed is mostly their homes. And
Thank you, Kassem. Rindala, if I can have you go next with whatever comment you want to offer, and then I'm going to come to each of you as we begin to wrap up with just a final moment. Rindala, please.
Yes, thank you. I want to add to what Nasser said. I think it's important. Yes, there is a debate in the country whether we should go into direct negotiations with Israel under US moderation or not. But I think what no one disagrees on, what is a consensus, is that, and I'm sorry, please excuse me, guys, but I think it needs to be said, is that the US is a partner in crime. At the end of the day, it is US arms, US money. I mean, you have a president of the United States, if you recall, as time when he was on TV speaking to Netanyahu, saying how beautiful those arms were and how effective they were. So, kid you not, even though we understand realistically we need the US, we need to have peace or whatever it is, we need to have some sort of agreement. But that does not mean that the US has been really a fair arbiter, because it has not been. I mean, we are being killed by US arms and US money. This is the bottom line. And maybe I'm being too blunt, but that is the reality.
Not blunt at all, Rindala. I mentioned Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. She does have legislation that she introduced in the House of Representatives that seeks to focus attention on what Israel is doing in Lebanon. There are some folks, Kathy is sharing here that Delia Ramirez has spoken out about what's happening in Lebanon. I believe she is one of the co-sponsors of Congresswoman Tlaib's bill. So there are some efforts taking place to increase and bring more attention there. I'm going to ask each of you if we could start with Nasser, just to give us your final thoughts in a quick moment. And if you could, when we get to both Rindala and Kassem, please, one of the questions asked that I want to make sure we address is, where are the people who have lived in these villages? Where are they now? Just if that can be part of your wrap up of the comments. Nasser?
Well, I think that, like you said, Maya, the U.S. government is not an honest broker these discussions. We had a ceasefire in Lebanon for 15 months after the 2024. Israel continued to pound the south, killing 400 people and 15,000 strikes. Ceasefire in Israel means not stopping their attacks. It means basically just continuing their killing. The Lebanese side stops theirs.
There, I have a charity, so I'm often on the ground. I unfortunately I see the misery firsthand. But first of all, especially in those border town, Bint Jbeil, and a lot of villages around it, there is nobody, zero. Nobody is in these villages. So where did these people go? Many are staying in schools. Originally, many people stayed in streets. Yeah, people were on the street, literally, and there were moments of rain and cold, etc. Now people are at schools and they get food. I mean, we're talking food. We're talking about something very basic like cans and stuff. From some government aid. But the schools are full, so a lot of people are living in crowded apartments. I mean, I know when I go see them, I find 6, 7, 10 families in a 2-bedroom. It is, I mean, it's just unconscionable what you see. And these people don't get the aid from the government, so that they rely on charities like our charity. So, they don't have anything. I mean, literally nothing. I had a woman walk up to me. I mean, I'm going to say it. And she said, I left my home and I don't have anything, nothing. Can you just spare some underwear? I mean, it was that intimate. It's mind-boggling. So I cannot describe it.
I've seen people on the sidewalks of the streets in a stadium in Beirut in tents, and now in schools. But this raises some concerns with schools now. The government are considering to reopen schools in some part of Lebanon. Many of them are where people are staying. So we have to have a plan to where these people will be displaced, or an alternative shelter for these people. Just as she said as well, they are renting a two-bedroom apartment, and there's a lot of exploitation in which an apartment that would be for $400 before the war monthly is now being priced at $2,000 minimum, same as where I'm staying. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of issues and concerns to raise, and uh, in the result, the war does not bring any victorious. It doesn't have any victorious side. There's always casualties, and the people are the victims of wars. So I hope that we have this collective. We bring this collective efforts together, and uh, stay together in these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you, Kassem. Jad?
Very quickly, I'll just say that while we're talking, the South is getting occupied. It is being systematically reduced to rubble, and there is an intention to keep its people permanently displaced. No matter how much we romanticize it, there are many people who won't be able to go back to the South, and frankly, many people who have started seriously thinking of permanently relocating outside of the South. My dad said Nabatieh is dead. I think we have an obligation to make sure the world proves them wrong and not allow another Nakba to happen in South Lebanon.
Thank you for everyone who's joined us today. Thank you especially to the four of you. These are obviously difficult conversations, but we will continue to have them because this is what we need our fellow Americans to understand about what is happening in Lebanon and the U.S. role that is enabling it.